Hey everyone, welcome to Power Core Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, Javon Harrington, and I'm here for a brand new series here to the Power Core lineup, specifically to our anime DC Comics Chapter 2, Journey into the Infinite Worlds. With our new story, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Star of Fate. Season 1, What If Jonathan Joestar Was Dr. Fate? Now, I've wanted to do Dr. Fate stories for a while now, but finding the anime series that could go along with it was a bit tricky. But then I started thinking, the power of Dr. Fate, it passes on from person to person. And what story better symbolizes the passing down of power more than the story of JoJo's, specifically the famed Joestar family and their never-ending battle against evil. As such, I'm combining these two mythos for a journey into everything strange, mystic, bizarre, and all leading to the culmination of fate. I do hope that you will enjoy this new series and the tales of the Joestar family. So, without further ado, let's get into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Star of Fate. What If Jonathan Joestar Was Dr. Fate? Season 1, Part 1. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Destiny. So many fight it, so many strive for it, so many seek it, and so many run from it. Destiny is something that is intangible. You cannot grasp it with your hands, despite how much you reach for it. It's not something you can see, although your vision can be clear as day. Destiny is what lies within one's own heart, a dream, a hope for something better, or the fear of the unknown. So many times people make their destinies on the very road that they take to avoid it. For some, destiny is often written in the stars, something that you are simply born into, your lot in life. Say the child of a slave and the child of a king. Did the child have a choice in its upbringing, in the environment? No. Many would say that through one's own fate, that is the lot in life that they were given. But yet there are others who would reject such notion, that the slave could rise to become a king, that the foolish prince, while becoming king, in his arrogance can lose the throne. Destiny is gained and loss, ebbing and flowing on the scales of life. This story is the story of such fate and destiny. The story of two bloodlines forever intertwined with one another through a chance encounter, a moment, a split-second decision that could have changed everything. It all started with a young man by the name of George Joestar, as he and his wife were traveling through carriage on a stormy night. They had become broken down and were in desperate need of help. There was a man, last name Brando, who came across the affluent couple in desperate need. Of course, the old man had the right mind to rob them, take everything they had, and leave them to die. It would have been so simple. He could have gotten away with it. For some reason, he'll never fully know why he didn't take the opportunity. Something that will eat at him for the rest of his natural life here on the earth. But in that moment, rather than kill, he chose to be kind. Of course, not without a price. That kindness would be repaid. And it was. For young George, he was raised to believe in fairness, to repay debt that is owed. And so he gave the man a letter that signified if he ever needed anything, any assistance, any sort of help, all he had to do was bring forth the letter, and nothing within his grasp would be held back from him. If he needed a home, a place to stay, a job, food, or just any form of financial service for their dire need, he would repay him. It was like having the lottery, a gift in his back pocket. He could cash in whenever he wanted. But as fate would have it, he never got the chance to. Now this man had a son. The boy's name was Dio. Dio hated his life. Why? Because it wasn't much of a life to begin with. His father saw to that. His father was a no-good hack, a fool, a gambler, a drunkard, reviler. Drove his mother to death. When Dio watched his father dying at his bedside, cackling and fighting back the coughs, dying from the disease that ravaged his lungs, he offered his son something. He told him the letter, that all he had to do was bring it to the Joestar family, that this could change his life. Dio, after taking the letter, would repay his father by smothering him with a pillow. When he put him in the grave, he spit on his tombstone. That'd be the only way he'd ever clean it off. He wasn't worth using soap and water. You all probably know the story. How Dio made his way into the home of the Joestars, and how he didn't take much of a liking to his brother, Jonathan. They were all at odds more than anything else. And for Jonathan, he could never fully understand what had he done wrong. It wasn't bad enough that Dio came in with an attitude. It wasn't bad enough that he kicked his dog and then later did the unspeakable. It wasn't bad enough that he stole the kiss of his love. It wasn't bad enough that he chose to embarrass him at every opportunity. He hated him for some reason. A reason that he could never identify. For Dio, he didn't really care. And either way, he believed that the world had screwed him over for far too long, and it was time for him to screw back. It was time for him to take charge, to do as he saw fit and as he pleased. He would become the one true prince. And in this role, this wasn't a duo-ship. But after a stern lecture from George, the two boys called a truce, more so a cold war than anything else. A smile, although it wasn't truly warmth behind it. A compliment, backhanded more than anything else. An act of service, always given in yet a slight form of spite. Yes, the two boys, they became like brothers, but yet there was no love lost between them. The saddest thing is as much as they hated it, they were an amazing duo. Academics, sports, any form of work, it didn't matter. Whenever you had Dio and Jonathan standing side by side, they became inevitable. They became a force that couldn't be overcome. The two of them, they complemented each other like day did night, like the sun to the moon. It was indescribable. And yet at the same time, there lied that tension, that feeling that it would only take one moment for everything to fall apart, the facade. even when the boys reached their college years, playing for their local sports team, even while winning the championship. The teamwork everyone saw, believing that this was their pinnacle, that they could only go further above. And yet at the same time, for both Dio and for Jonathan, it didn't feel that way for either of them. Of course, Jonathan tried to make peace, tried to accept that this was just the new normal. As long as his brother did not slight him, then truthfully he didn't care. As long as he left him and his life and his friends alone, that's all that mattered. He had Irina, his beloved. That was all he cared about. His father in good health. He could tolerate Dio. Much to the boys' surprise, that summer, George called them in because he wanted to take a trip. It was in the tradition of the Joestar family to travel all around the world to explore. After all, they did serve as a family of archaeologists. That was part of how they made their fortune. And for this trip, George wanted to take his boys on a special tour of the Mesopotamian Egyptian pyramids, to explore tombs, discover artifacts and other things, to build on their legacy. This was his biggest expedition to date, and it was going to be headlined by the Joestar sons. When you boys first got here, I know that it was a rough patch and you all didn't see eye to eye on many things. But I've noticed the change in you both. You don't believe it, but I truly do. When you both work together, there is nothing that you can't accomplish. I will not always be here, and I want the Joestar name to live on. For you, Dio, and for you, Jonathan. That's why you will be the head leaders in this expedition, and I will be taking the backseat role. I want to see what you're all capable of. This expedition could lead you into a new stratosphere. It could really be the highlight and mark of the beginnings of your careers in this field. And from there is nothing that this world can hold back from you. George looked at both of his boys with a sincere smile. This was his gift to them, the belief that through this adventure, whatever old demons and wounds, it could all be left behind. For Dio, he saw opportunity. This could be the next score for him. But all that joy was quickly zapped when he thought about, then I'd have to share it with him, Jonathan. Dio had his reservations. He'd even been doing his own research, and he looked into a particular artifact that his father, stepfather to be more specific, had collected from his trips to the Aztec pyramids, a stone mask. It was apparently used in ritual, a way of gaining immortality. All that was needed was blood. Of course, getting a hold of that wouldn't be much of an issue, but there was no way of truly knowing whether or not it would work, although he always kept it around just in case. Eventually, the time for the trip would begin, the expedition into Egypt. The father and son duos would make their way to the tombs. In doing so, they were going to explore with a small tour guide group. A few men who would be carrying torches, supplies, weapons for any potential conflict that may come about. This was an all-expense-paid trip and was hoping to bear great results. Even while exploring the tombs, Dio continued to look for an opportunity. Eventually, he found it. He overheard some of the workers. They were having conversation, talking about how they didn't really like working for a rich aristocrat, believing them all to be nothing but culture appropriating assholes, and that they'd be better off just splitting whatever they found on their own. Of course, even while Dio was a part of the Joestar family, he always made sure to distinguish himself. That's why he never took the name Joestar. No, it was still Dio Brando, just associate of the Joestar family. Of course, George really wished Dio would have taken the family name. Jonathan, while not really caring, at the very least would admire that his family name wouldn't have to be tarnished by being associated with Dio nonetheless. Though still, if he wanted to accept it, the choice was his. Dio would listen to the disgruntled workers. He tickled their ear with sweet talk, telling them that they were right. He'd seen how his adopted father had behaved, and it was very unbecoming. Of course, some of the workers scoffed, believing that Dio was no better, that he came from privilege, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and for that, Dio quickly punched his. "Oh, you little..." Let me make one thing perfectly clear. I was not born into any form of privilege. I only got here because they owed me a debt. That is all. Anything I get, I plan to earn for myself. Don't lump me in with the likes of them. You got that? Hearing the venom in the boy's voice, the one who had spoken out of turn would quickly back away. But I do agree with you all. You feel slighted. And I agree. Who says that they should be the ones to enjoy all of this wealth and fortune? We're the ones doing the grunt work. Look, the bag I carry is heavier than my brother's. But yet you still think that we're equal? No, they think of me as little more than charity. But I say, we can take it all for ourselves. They listened intently as Dio told them the plan. He had his own map of the tomb itself, of a particular passageway. He planned to guide them there, and then there would be a unfortunate accident. After doing so, Dio would ensure that the family fortune that he was now signed into via the will would all come to him. From there, Dio could live the high life. They could have any of the scraps in the tomb. It didn't really matter to him. Having half of the crew on his side, they would plan out their attack. And before long, as they arrived deeper and deeper into the belly of the tomb itself, they would soon find the resting place of the pharaohs, a room aligned with the sarcophagus, with the jewels and the gemstones. After weeks of excavation, planning, they'd finally reached their point. For George, he grabbed hold of both of the boys, holding one in each arm, smiling proudly at them for the work that they had done, noting that this would be the next phase in their careers. I'm so proud of you boys. You have truly shown yourselves to be capable and respectable men. This here will be your legacy. Thank you, Father, Jonathan said. Yes, I do agree, Father. Dio spoke. George was a bit taken aback by this, because in all of his time, in all of the years that Dio had spent with them, he'd never once addressed him as father, simply Mr. George or Mr. Joestar or Sir Joestar, but never father. This even caught Jonathan by surprise. It wasn't like him to even do such a thing. Had he changed? Turned over a new leaf? His father, so swelled up with pride, smiling from ear to ear, took no note of the handgun that Dio pointed at his stomach as he fired 3 shots, causing George to fall to the ground. "Father!" Jonathan would say. "You bastard! What have you..." Ah! Jonathan would find himself being shot in the shoulder as the crew members who had turned against them started to rain their attack. Those who were loyal would fight back as well. Even while wounded, Jonathan would still attempt to fight against Dio, as the two of them would battle it out. You traitor! Murderer! What's it to you? It's not like it matters. If you truly care about me, why won't you just do me a favor and die? He trusted you! Get your damn hands off me! As they continued to fight, more and more men would begin to die. Eventually, Dio would be on the defensive, as Jonathan had managed to kick the gun out of his hand and force him to the ground. The satchel that he was carrying, along with the stone mask, would fall out. Desperate, with blood on his own hands, Dio reached for the mask. His bloody handprint on the stone face as he placed it over his own. Instantly, he felt something within him. It was a change, but Jonathan had reached for the gun as he fired the last 2 shots right at Dio, hitting him directly in the neck and in the hand. Dio fell to the ground, desperately clutching for air, his lungs being filled with blood as it spurted out of his mouth with the mask in tow. For Jonathan, he thought he had gotten a measure of revenge. It wasn't the prettiest of sights, but at this point, he truly didn't give a damn. He simply turned back to his father, who was desperately fighting for life. Son, I'm here. He'll be all right. We'll get you to a doctor and... By God, Dio, what have you done? The fighting had seemingly come to an end. Thankfully, those who were loyal were able to overcome the betrayers. Those who hadn't been killed were quickly being rounded up. For Dio, he lied on the ground, lifeless in a pool of his own blood. They all thought it was over until suddenly, Dio's body began to twitch and shake, before eventually rising to his feet once again. Freeze! Don't move, Dio! That's right. You're going to be under arrest, kid. Murdering your father like that. You'll pay for what you've done! Oh, that's rich. That's so rich! Dio would remove the mask, with a sinister grin etched on his face. The one holding his rifle closest to Dio would tell him not to move, but Dio slowly approached him. Stay back, kid. I'm warning you. Stay back! Dio would hold the barrel of the gun to his head. You can't miss from here now, can you? Although knowing you and your incompetence, I'm sure you'll find a way. By all means, take your shot. The others would get close to Dio as well, attempting to subdue him. The one that came closest with rope, Dio grabbed him and ripped his arm right out of its socket. The man yelled out a blood-curdling scream, and the other one holding the rifle to his head just opened fire. Dio fell to the ground, and no one being able to explain what happened, they all just hoped that this was over. Except it wasn't. Because Dio got back to his feet, reaching for where he had been shot and shoving the brain matter back into his skull, twisting it in a little bit to really spook them out. I told you not to miss. Seriously, I can't believe that Mr. George would hire the likes of you. You are all supposed to keep his family safe. Dio would grab one by the neck and squeeze until his head popped. Unfortunately, we were all robbed by a bunch of marauders. Another one, he plunged his hand into his chest, holding his beating heart as he squeezed it. I was the only survivor. One by one, Dio killed all of the men, save only for Jonathan and George, who already lied dying. Of course, he could have killed Jonathan first. That probably would have felt the best, but you know what they say, you don't eat your dessert first, you save it for last. Because revenge is the sweetest form of dessert. But he liked the fear. Knowing Jonathan, he would have tried to do something, but he watched it all unfold. Dio, what have you become? What I was always meant to be, Jonathan. I must say, I am grateful. You gave me clarity. I lacked that. I always wondered if I was getting soft, if I was taking things a little too easy, but then I remembered just how much I hate you. And that always cheered me up. It's a shame I'm gonna have to lose that. Dio would head towards the exit. I've been placing bombs all along the way. I've made sure to grab what I need. Dio threw a bag of jewels and other goods over his shoulder. I have power and wealth. With all of you gone, the Joestar family, all of its fortune, now within my grasp. I can finally rest at peace, knowing that I will never have to see your ugly face ever again, or hear your annoying voice. It will be tragic, truly it will be. But I promise you this, every night when I'm looking into Irena's eyes, when she gazes back at me, as I comfort her over the loss of her dearly beloved, I want you to know, every moment her fingers caress themselves through my hair, every time my hand grasps upon her plump and ripe bosom, every time I make her scream, I'll be thinking of you, Dio said with a smile. Jonathan lunged right at him, only to be backhanded across the room, his head smacking against the concrete walls, blood drawing from the back of his skull. Had Dio used enough force to kill him? Maybe, maybe not. It's not like it mattered. This was going to be his final resting place. With that, he would set off the sticks of dynamite as they exploded, trapping he and his father inside. In the meantime, those of the crew that were left on the surface, they would come back to hear the sounds in the distance. Dio was preparing to make his way to the outside, but the moment his hand touched the rays of sun, he shrieked, yelling as he fell back. He felt like he had been set afire. No, this can't be. What's going on in there? Are you all right? Master Dio, what's wrong? Stay back! Stay away! The few that had come into the shade of the inner tomb to see what had happened, Dio snapped, killing them. It became a whole mess. They all kept coming, even though Dio told them not to, and he had no choice. Before long, they were dead. The sun still beating, and Dio couldn't go out. Was this the effects of the mask? His power wouldn't work in sunlight. What the hell? Look at what your greed's got you, boy. Who said that? It was then that a man, with skin seemingly pale and as white as snow, hair as black as a starless night, would approach him. The man seeming as though he were the devil himself. Truly ironic, wouldn't you say? You betrayed your father and your brother, leaving nothing but a trail of blood. All for what? For money that you can never use. For a dream that you can never make into reality. I must say, truly pathetic. Dio would lunge at the man, but he simply held out his hand and forced Dio back, causing him to fall to the ground, an unknown force bearing itself upon him. How are you? I am capable of many things, far beyond your meager comprehension. You think you have power, boy? But trust me, you don't know what real power truly is. Who are you? I am called many things, but you can call me Wotan. I can help you. Help me? I can. And in turn, you will help me. And what exactly do you want? The same thing as you. A world of darkness. Do we have a deal? Wotan held his hand out to Dio, and Dio, with no choice, would take it. A pact of darkness formed between them, a bond in blood. In the meantime, Jonathan lied, falling and slipping unconsciously inside of the tomb, where he and his father and the others lied, this to be their final resting place. However, just as he felt himself slipping away, he heard footsteps, an unknown voice arriving, picking up poor Jonathan. You will be all right, child. This is no place for you to die. Jonathan finally fell unconscious, eventually waking up, his shoulder and his head bandaged, along with his other wounds that were attended to. He saw that he was in a tent, and lying across on the other side, a body completely wrapped in bandage. He couldn't tell the body, but he had a sneaking feeling. Father, I see you have awoken. Who are you? What are... Rest. I am not your adversary. You can call me Nabu. Nabu? How did I get here? How did you... I was told to find you. I didn't think I'd make it in time, and I did not. I am sorry for the loss of your father. Truly I am. Dio, he betrayed me. He has called upon dark forces, this Dio. Do you know the tomb that you were all digging into? I thought it was the tomb of a king. It is a tomb of evil. I was hoping to stop you all before you got too far. But you are more quick than I give you credit. You have unsealed a tomb of darkness, and now that darkness seeks to envelop the world. A darkness? Why are you... I am telling you, because you are the only one who can stop it now. I have seen the future, and I see you as a child of the light. You will be the first of many stars, stars of light that will shine and fight against the darkness. You are but the first star. I can help you. I can teach you many things. Where is Dio? The boy has returned back to your home country, and he brings the darkness with him. Soon your city, and soon the world, all swallowed in a darkness that never ends. But you can change that. Jonathan Joestar, will you accept this fate? This concludes JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Star of Fate. What if Jonathan Joestar was Dr. Fate? Season 1, Part 1. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Star of Fate. What if Jonathan Joestar was Dr. Fate? Season 1, Part 2. But that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.